Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture.
Hi, friends. How's everybody feeling today?
The sun is shining, so it's a good day.
I'm feeling good. It's been so hot down here. Hot heat.
And it's been in the 90s the last 2 days. We went from early April, and we've talked about the crazy April weather, at least here in Kentucky. Dry, hot early, and then it turned off with frost, and now we're back into the 90s. But finally, we're going to get some rain, it looks like, this week. So
we're
excited about that.
Okay.
We have a guest from the great north. What are things going going on up in Minnesota?
Man, it's been dry.
It's been dry up there also? Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, but it's been cool. It's kind of a funny spring. We started out real warm and then it got cold. And so a lot of our trees have been, small little leaves, just kind of in a holding pattern, but they'll start growing soon.
Yeah. So because it sounds about like Kentucky's spring, it's been a yo-yo. I would like to say that that's unusual, but it seems like it's becoming more typical, the variation. So maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Yo-yo's coming back in vogue. Is that what you're telling me, Ray?
It is. It never went out, Brett.
I have seen a lot of cool yo-yo tricks online lately. So, maybe it's a thing.
I've got some scars from yo-yos. I mean, still to this very day. Those of us that were in the extreme yo-yo crowd, way back.
Spikes on them? How do you get scars from yo-yos?
If you sling them hard, they were originally a weapon. Do you not know this? They were designed originally back in, antiquity as well. Yes. But no, if you're doing yo-yos right, you may end up with scars. I'm just saying, Alexis.
Wow. That's extreme yo-yoing. We're gonna talk a little bit about forests and forestry and all that kind of stuff today. But before we do, I wanted to ask a question, but it's actually going to be more related than usual.
Okay.
And that is, what is your favorite time of year to spend in the forest?
Well, I'll jump in, and for you Kentuckians, that this might sound out of sync, but I love it when it's cold. Walking, clomping through, crunching down on cold snow, no bugs. Love it.
Ooh, I like that. That is a very valid point. The no bug angle is going to be hard to beat. Yeah.
Considering the ticks are so bad already this year, that sounds pretty good.
Tick awareness is at an all-time high right now. So
I'm going to say late spring personally. Like I don't want it to the beginning of May in Kentucky, late spring.
Why is that? I mean, just because of the leaf emergence, or what's going on late spring?
Yeah, it's like you kind of it feels like the best of both worlds for a lot of stuff, right? Everything's still like fresh green, but it's not usually not like miserably hot. Usually.
I thought you would define it by the ephemerals. I know how you're an ephemeral fan. So,
yeah, I do like the ephemerals. It's a sweet spot.
Oh yeah, everything's lush.
Ray, you have the Red River Gorge blooming calendar.
In my head,
is it still tattooed on your lower back? No.
I have to tape it onto my forearm, so when I'm walking, I know where all the big leaves are.
I see.
The magnolias in the place. No, I love. You guys already know this. Those, that are with me week in and week out. But I love the fall time of the year when it starts to get crunchy underfoot. A different season of crunch. Okay, Eli. But when it starts to get crunchy underfoot, and you get that fall smell in the air. Not only that, but the colors. That is my absolute jam for many, many reasons, but I love that time of year with the changing of the seasons.
Ray's also he's a basic girly and loves his pumpkin spice and his cinnamon, and we love that.
You did not have to out me like
flannel.
That. Okay, I really appreciate it.
We all know.
Okay.
Just own it. Own your
now Eli knows. Now Minnesota may know because he has a podcast. Also, Alexis, the word is getting out. So
Ray showed me his phone.
Everybody will feel better. There's other basic girlies out there.
Well, because you showed me that album in your phone that it was called Fall Selfies, and there was 8,000 pictures in it, and I was kind of confused as to.
There's some plants in there in my head.
It seemed like a lot of the same content, but
over and over again.
Every day springs eternal.
Every day's a good day. Well, Brett, we need to hear from you, buddy.
I think I'm going to go +1 on the winter.
Okay.
I think. Mainly because I get really hot when I'm walking around, and when I have glasses, basically anytime other than when it's cold, my glasses will just be completely steamed up the whole time. And so then it becomes a tripping hazard. I already don't see very well in the first place. And so I think the less sweating I can be doing is cool, and the visibility on like deciduous stands where you can see through stuff across areas that you couldn't otherwise see. There's a charm to the lush little corridors created, but I think I prefer the wintertime.
Okay.
It's also like a more advanced time of year to work on your tree identification.
Your winter botany skills,
yeah.
Brett? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't like trekking around like the Michelin in like my Michelin's man suit. Like
Brett's
that's the way
just
I
out
feel.
there in his t-shirt and shorty shorts.
Yeah.
Okay, in the winter, 21 degrees. Brett's just out in it. He's
just
out in it.
I'm definitely that kid in his big pink bunny snowsuit, trekking around. So.
Yeah, I would be very tempted to like tip you over and see if you could get back up.
Honestly, it's very
style.
turtle-esque. Yeah.
Yeah. Turtle. Well, we're joined by a really cool guest that I actually recently met up in Washington D.C. We were at a meeting in the same place, and we got to talking, and he mentioned he's interested in maybe starting some more podcasting stuff up in his neck of the woods. But Eli, would you mind to introduce yourself and kind of your affiliations and let the folks here know who you are?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Really glad to be here. I'm Eli Sagor. I'm an extension forestry specialist with the University of Minnesota. I'm based up at the Cloquet Forestry Center, which is our you could think of it as our school forest, 3,500 acres or so, a couple hours north of the Twin Cities, near the western end of Lake Superior, and really a beautiful spot, great place to be.
That's awesome. We've had some folks on from our Robinson Center at Kentucky that has a lot of forestry focused stuff. The Wood Utilization Center and some of they have retreats and all kinds of other stuff. And so, what kind of stuff do you typically get into in your job? Are you doing mostly education? Are you doing more research? More like what's I know there's no such thing as a normal day in extension, but what do some of your normal days or typical days look like?
Well, my best days are in the woods. I do two things. I do two things. I don't have a research appointment. I'm 100% extension, but maybe it's I'm 50% extension, 50% administration. You can all boo if you want. But several years ago, yeah, right. I took on a new role as program leader for our University of Minnesota Extension Natural Resources programs. Just got a great team of folks. So I provide leadership to that group. That includes aquatic invasive species, pollinator education, forestry, and our Minnesota Master Naturalist team. So it's a good group. So increasingly, it's about kind of leadership, supervision, strategy with that group, and I love that. I've been doing extension for 26 years, and even though, as I just said, my best days are in the woods, and I can talk a little more about that, I also love working with people and thinking about ideas. How can we do what we're doing a little bit better? How can we innovate? How can we keep people on their toes, use new technologies, new ways of connecting, all those kinds of things. And I just love doing that with the group. When I'm not in my admin role, I am an extension forestry specialist. Most of my extension teaching is with professional resource managers. Not all of it, but most of it is. We have an organization called the Sustainable Forest Education Cooperative, and I swear I'm the luckiest person in extension to be running this group. We've got 56 now organizational members. They are public and private, companies and agencies, tribal natural resource agencies, wood products companies, soil and water conservation districts, you name it. Collectively, they employ just about all the professional natural resource managers in Minnesota. And my job with that group is to find out what their professional development and continuing education needs are, and then work with them to plan and deliver them. It's awesome. And my best days, and I have some pictures of this that I have as my desktop background. I just love are standing in a circle of people in the woods, people whose job is to care for these incredible, diverse natural ecosystems that provide food and fuel and fiber to meet our needs, and that are also, again, diverse, native, functioning ecosystems. Forestry is awesome. And when we think about the big challenges facing us, climate change and invasive species and all these things, these are the folks, they don't think about these things in theory. They're thinking about it and managing it and making decisions every day and boy, pretty quickly you get past the fluff and into what do I really do about this? What should we do on this piece of ground to deal with this? And boy, I love those conversations. I always learn a ton from folks. So that's kind of what I do.
You said you learned from those folks. It was interesting. I started after Brett kind of introduced you as that you'd be coming on as a guest. I was looking into that group that you just mentioned. It was interesting. It seemed like there was this focus that isn't always the case, but this focus of peer to peer. Is that correct with that group? That as far as a learning model, I kind of picked up on that. It wasn't really a top down model. It seemed like a lot of the interconnectivity of that group is one to the other. As far as the flow of info. Is that right?
That very much is right. Yeah, a big kind of thread running through a lot of the work that my team and I do is about, especially with this work with professionals, is about elevating the voices of practitioners. So again, these are folks that spend every day working in the woods. And I can talk about this paper I just read or a talk I just heard, Brett give at a conference in Washington, D.C., but their eyes are going to glaze over pretty quickly when
Especially
they hear about
if you
that
tell them
sort
it's
of
for
thing.
me. Yeah,
If they know who you
that's a good
are.
way to clear out a room.
Snooze fest.
That's right. That's right. But a lot of us are good at clearing out the room, and they, again, their eyes glaze over so fast once they realize you're reading from a script or you're, just got to get through my 400 slides. And when you can talk about real problems, real issues, I don't have all the answers, and they don't have all the answers. I don't mean to say that practitioners know everything that all of us need to know, but boy, when we come together and maybe I did read a paper about some new technique that somebody tried, and maybe they would then say, well, yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know if that would work in this situation, but it might work over there. Boy, those are good conversations. And well, this sounds great, but would a logger ever bid on that sale? And if a logger wouldn't buy that sale, then we're never going to get that treatment done, because that's how you get forests managed, is through timber sales. And so, there's economics in there's operations, there's communication, there's ecology, there's conservation, there's climate adaptation, any number of issues. And I just really deeply believe that we're, no one person or even group of people has all the answers we need. And so too long, especially in academia, we try to, we like to be on the stage. We think we've got all the answers because we do this fancy research. And, in some fields, maybe we do. I wouldn't want to be experimenting on the fly with cancer research or brain surgery. But a field like forestry, and I think the same is true of horticulture, is as much about trying things out and seeing what we can learn as it is about formal experimentation and study. So, yeah, you're right, Ray. We really do try to put practitioners up in front of the group. There's a reason I said it's standing in a circle as opposed to somebody on the podium, because we're all contributing to that dialogue.
We really talk about that concept a lot, and I've thought about it a lot more. But with master gardeners, because and they quickly realize this. It's about a 12-week program here in Kentucky, 3 hours a session, so we have them for quite a period of time. But I stress early on that they'll learn as much from each other through those informal connections that they make one with the other as they will for me. And they know that's absolutely true after about the second episode of listening to me drone on. But I always stress that, and it's just so true. And when I was in the eastern part of Kentucky, I worked a lot more with forestry. I was in a county that was about 80+% forested. And those informal connections, peer to peer, one person knows their neighbor. I quickly come to appreciate I could have a program and bring in a very, good Dr. Stringer or someone that's very good in forestry for a formal talk and not have much participation. And I kept racking my brain, what's going on? But I quickly learned that if I kind of went out and met with a neighbor and then he talked to his neighbor, especially if one of them made money logging, had a good experience with a logger. And, then I started asking all these questions, and that's really how I made inroads, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Joke. But that's really how I made inroads with that group. And it was tapping into that kind of personal relationships and edging in that way rather than, coming strictly from the university. And then we could apply, the information that we had once we got to know the people and figuring out those networks and how they communicated with each other. But really interesting how, especially that community, I come from a family of loggers, how they got information, good and bad. But learning about things, finding landowners if you're a logger, and vice versa if you're a landowner, finding a reputable, logger. But interesting topic, super interesting to me.
Well, and so much of that comes down to trust,
Yes.
and it's those relationships, and it's trust, and trust comes from conversation. And I think it's interesting too. So you mentioned Jeff Stringer. Jeff, I've known for many, many years. He flew me out to Kentucky. I made my
Oh,
first
wow.
visit to Lexington, and the area, to the state, actually, probably 20 years ago now, with Billy Thomas
Oh, yeah.
and Renee Williams and Brett. Oh yeah,
All the
and
guy folks here. Yeah.
yeah. So good times, and great. So I know, I have a sense for, Jeff's just an outstanding educator, and I think what you said is still true. It's often Jeff comes in with a huge amount of knowledge, and he's
Mhm.
such a good educator that
Yes.
he's going to come in with questions too. But I mean, you learn as much from the questions as from the content. I mean, if someone brings me in to give a talk and I start rattling off facts, those are going to go in one ear and out the other. But if we have a conversation, you're going to see how a person who has a lot of experience and knowledge in a topic, you're going to learn how they think about it. What are the questions they're asking? The answers are going to differ. Nobody has the answers that I need for my particular situation. But if I know the right questions to ask as a learner, then I can ask those questions and I can usually find a pretty good answer. And if I see someone who knows a lot about the topic, if I know what questions they're asking, that's more important than the answer. So I really deeply, as I said before, believe in the value of conversation and exchange. And if we think that, oh, only people with a lot of letters after their name, are worth listening to, we're just missing the boat completely.
Yeah. Well, I want to return to the pedagogy and like outreach, the way that you're thinking about doing that in a second. But I want to jump into some more plant nerd, forestry nerd stuff, and just hear like what are some cool things that you've seen over the last few years, just things that come to mind that you were like, oh, that's a cool solution, or like this is an interesting thing, and maybe in the process talk about like what the issues are in Minnesota in particular that people are maybe trying to confront.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few members of my team have been working on a project, called Climate Ready Woodlands. Emily Dombeck, Anna Stockstead, and Angie Gupta have been doing this, and they have been. So that's really, as the name suggests, climate ready woodlands. It's really grounded in helping our forests adapt to a changing climate, and we're really seeing, noticeably and measurably shorter winters here in Minnesota, as one example, longer growing seasons, milder winters, so we're not getting the winter kill on some non-native insects that we might like to see, um, and that we might have gotten 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, and that affects tree ranges. For many species, at least in our part of the world, tree species ranges, how far they go, where they exist, is cold limited. So, someone, Alexis, you said earlier, you feel like the Michigan man when it's 21 degrees. I think I heard you say, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's
I'm just
spring in Minnesota. That's a mild day here."
Perspective, Alexis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we start talking winter at 20 below, and and a lot of species. Anyway, as we see fewer days of 20 below and 30 below, that really has a big impact on what trees can grow where. And likewise, we're seeing, as we have hotter and different summers, some insects are reproducing more rapidly and causing problems. So our forests are changing. That climate ready woodlands work is, grounded in the idea in combining really deep knowledge about native plant communities here in Minnesota. We have an excellent ecological classification system with a new kind of science about, the suitability of various species to thrive in a future climate. So it's hard to predict, but we do have a lot of knowledge and information that climate modelers and plant ecologists and others can come up with.
Are you
And
trying
that's
to
just been
reconcile that?
fascinating.
Reconcile
Right.
that with the age of trees? I mean, in my mind, as you're having this conversation, I'm like, oh my goodness. How do you work with the long term perennial and kind of watch that? That's kind of interesting. Like, how do you reconcile that?
Very long-term perennial. So, I mean, in Minnesota, a standard rotation from the time you plant a tree to the final harvest can be well over 100 years. And the climate is changing rapidly. So if a tree is well suited to today's conditions, it's maybe going to have a problem at the end of that rotation. So anyway, a lot of that's going on, not to get too deep into it, but that's one of the things, Brett, that we're seeing a lot of attention to, this concept of assisted migration. How far should we be moving species? There are hazards, especially with moving nursery stock. You're all very familiar. Jumping worms are a big issue here. Moving stock can carry risks. And so there's a lot to balance there. But we're thinking a lot about approaches to climate adaptation and how we can steward our forests into the future, maintaining their productive capacity and the jobs and economic activity that people depend on, and also needing to think differently. We never had to think about climate adaptation, but we really do now.
What are the, like, some of the key species? Because you're talking about 20 below, and that's for 40 below. That's pretty serious. What are some of the kind of key species that are, most economically identified as important, maybe most ecologically identified as important? I realize that's kind of like picking your favorite child, but maybe there's,
no,
there's
a
couple at least.
I can do it.
He's like, I got it. No problem.
Got it.
I do have a favorite child, and it is.
I do, yeah.
This one.
I love black spruce. I just think it's the coolest species. Black spruce is this tall, skinny, scraggly looking, dark, thing that just stands up straight like a sentinel out in the woods. And it only grows places that nothing else wants to grow. It grows in bogs, acidic peatlands, wet, his feet are wet all year. It grows slowly. You'll be looking at a 4-inch stem diameter, and the thing will be 180 years old. They're just cool. And they stand, they're just out there in any conditions, and they're happy about it. I love black spruce. They're just awesome. You can really, they're very important economically. They're great. They sometimes grow a little faster than what I said, but they'll be happy just hanging out there. And they're really important economically. They are an important source of fiber to the wood products industry. You can only harvest them when it's really, really frozen. When it's frozen enough that you can get a gigantic piece of harvesting equipment out there into the middle of a bog. And it's just a neat environment. Peatlands, of course, are super important ecologically and in terms of climate, because they store an absolutely immense amount of carbon. So they're cool systems, cool trees. Tamarack are another one that often coexist with black spruce. There are only deciduous conifer that's native to Minnesota. So that means they are a conifer. They have needles and cones, but they drop them every year. And we get a lot of calls from homeowners that are maybe just bought a new house or property, and all my trees are dying around October.
That's our bald cypress group.
Yeah.
Right. No, they're not dying. Just be patient.
They're living fully. They're experiencing a bald period. Let them live.
They're lightening their load to get through winter. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they're doing fine.
I think thinking about the variation in the way that the forests shift, and of course there's not this demarcation line where above this things grow and below there's these transition zones. But going and experiencing, Alexis was recently out in Utah, and while she was there, got to do some hiking and she must have sent me almost as many pictures of trees as Ray has of fall selfies.
Look at this one. Look at this one. Look at
this one's different.
It's like, you might as well be on Mars if you haven't traveled to those places, as far as the different feel and adaptation and the speed of growth and water availability. All that stuff is really, really cool.
And you're fairly close to the Great Lakes, is that correct? You're northeast. I'm trying to orient my brain to where you're located there.
No, that's exactly right. So my office is just about 20 miles west of the westernmost tip of the Great Lakes system.
Oh, wow.
So Lake Superior looks like a wolf's head, and the Duluth, Minnesota is sitting right on top of the wolf's nose.
Yep.
And my office is about, 15, 18 miles due west of there.
I mean, I always
right
said,
at the end of the
what a
Great
cool
Lakes.
area. I mean, what a great area. I
Is.
mean, how does that like impact the job, professionally that you do, being that close to those kind of geographic features as the Great Lakes? I mean, it has to impact it some, I guess.
It's awesome. I mean, we got
Yeah.
plenty of water. A little different story out in Utah. I know you were looking at the trees, Alexis, but
Yeah.
water's an issue out there. We don't have problems with water. We got plenty of water, at least for now. But it's amazing. The world's largest inland shipping port is in Duluth, Minnesota. Lake Superior. Goodness, I should. If other team members were here, I'd get it right. But I'm pretty sure it's might be the second deepest lake in the world, and maybe the largest lake by volume, or is that Lake Baikal? I don't know exactly, but it's
I was
enormous.
gonna say Lake
It's number
Baikal.
one.
That's where I went.
Yeah,
Big
it's
old
number
big old
one or
lake is
number
what I'm
two.
hearing.
Big old lake.
And it's awesome. Rugged,
Very large.
rugged lakeshore. Yeah, it's super neat. And a lot of Minnesota is not developed. We have a really interesting mix of land ownership and land use. Only about a third of our forest land is in private ownership. The rest is owned and
Oh,
managed by
wow.
counties, by states, by the federal government. Well over half of our forest land is in
Wow.
state ownership. So that creates a really interesting mix. You have some very large acreage owners that can do things at a massive scale. And then a whole lot of others who have 40 acres in the woods or some hunting land or whatever else. And so, again, it just makes for an interesting mix. But there's a lot of woods around here, a lot of places to go walking in the woods, to go hunting, to go obviously fishing. We got, they call us the land of 10,000 lakes, but it's closer to 15. And it's, there's, like I said, lots of water and lots of big open spaces to get out in it. So it's a great place. I didn't grow up in Minnesota. I grew up in the East, and it's just I've been here now for 26 years. So some days I still feel new, but it's I chose this place and I just love it.
Yeah, I got to spend a little bit of time in the Upper Peninsula a couple years ago, and I'd never been up that far north into that area. And the first thing I noticed, I was like, "Wow, the log trucks and the logging equipment up here is way bigger. It's way different than the eastern part of Kentucky." I was like, "Goodness!" And just the conifers, I was like, "What? They can actually grow evergreens up here? Wow,
Yeah,
that's different." But it just struck me the quality of the air where I was at. And being around the Great Lakes, it was seeing a body of water that big with tides and not smelling salt. My brain could not comprehend that.
I've
Looking
been
out at
there.
all that water, what a great area! Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
awesome.
is.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about earlier before I derailed us onto cool species and that discussion was just thinking about like information delivery, communication. We work in extension. We work with a lot of technical assistance folks, and Ray and I actually did an podcast episode maybe a year or two ago, talking about. I'm going to date Ray here, though he looks so young and juvenescent and full of energy. He
Not the case.
worked through the introduction of the internet into extension, like that. It was like the internet's coming, computers, get rid of the giant file cabinets, etc. We've kind of got this new thing with AI, and I won't take us too far down that AI rabbit hole. But I one of the things I'm struck by with your programming is that you've kind of been working to implement technology while not losing contact with that human nature of the work of extension. I made a note about the My Minnesota Woods project, and I know you're interested also in maybe doing some podcasting and that kind of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about how you figure that out as a team or as a person, figuring out how to communicate in the digital age when we're still solving problems in the analog physical world?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked it. And I'm right there next to Ray. I back in '07. In fact, I mentioned earlier that Jeff Stringer flew me down to Kentucky, and that was shortly after we launched this website, My Minnesota Woods. And we were one of I'm not going to say we were the first, but relatively early in the development of kind of digital extension work in forestry in Minnesota. And that was a lot of fun. So that's always been an interest of mine. But the story, Brett, that you and I talked about at that conference a few weeks ago is really fascinating to me too. So in a nutshell, basically, I found us, I found myself reading this sort of editorial calendar of our monthly email update. Everybody's got a monthly email update, and that's because they're great. email works.
Yeah.
People sometimes read their email, and it's a good medium. But I was reading it and I was thinking, this content is really good, but how could we humanize this? How can we, in the era of AI, how can we remind people that we are actual living, breathing people that live in your community and are thinking and solving problems or trying to? And I started to think about conversation, just like we were talking. And it started to think, well, what if we made a conversational version of this? What if we talked about the monthly email update? What's going on in the Minnesota woods this month that you need to be thinking about? And that led to a number of other team members. I kind of pitched this idea, and there was a little bit of skepticism. What do you mean? What if we make mistakes? And what are do we? The original idea was to do it via video with basically no editing. Hey, we're rolling, we're going. Let's keep it human. That's the point. Sure, we're going to flub and cough every now and then or whatever else, and maybe we clean it up a bit. But let's be human. And we're not too far down that road. We're still experimenting, but Emily Dombeck, a member of our team, is really doing a lot of thinking behind the scenes about platforms and how we want to set this up. And it's going to be fun. We're getting closer. I was at a conference last week in North Carolina, did some field audio recordings, which were good learning experience. Some of them came out really well. Some of them I learned where you can't record and get anything useful at all, which is essentially a room full of people. But anyway, we're experimenting, we're learning, we're going to flub some things, we're going to make some mistakes, but we're moving in the direction that you all have already adopted with this podcast that we're on right now. And we're gonna learn as we go.
Yeah.
But that's really been a lot of fun. And we also had a podcast, when the pandemic hit, a good friend of mine, Kyle Gill, and a coworker of mine at the Cloquet Forestry Center, we started a podcast called Camp 8. Camp 8 is an old red pine stand at the Cloquet Forestry Center where we work. And it's a stand that, for various reasons, that's where we take most people to when we do woods tours. And so it seemed like a good name. It's a gathering point. And we just had, I think it was 12 episodes on how the pandemic has changed life for resource managers who work in the woods. And, just like throughout society, some people were really deeply and heavily impacted and others less so. I mean, if you work alone in the woods, you can maybe still go to work even during the pandemic.
Got social distancing built into the job description.
Yep, exactly. And so it was interesting to explore some of that, and that experience. And it didn't last too long. We did it for 6 months. We loved it. Audience really liked it. I don't know why we didn't continue it, but that left me with that understanding of the power of conversation and of just asking and spending time and listening. And I just think it's a tremendous medium.
So what a great conversation. Yeah.
I was gonna say the number of times that we're out and Alexis and I are both pretty loud people. And people will say, they'll like find us from across the room and be like, I recognize your voice from you're on the podcast. And it's like, whoa, the power of, I don't know if that's, that we're loud enough that they can hear us across the room, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what he was talking about, like Eli, the power of amplification. How do we do that? Like in extension, we don't want to, I mean, I don't know if you guys have this up north, but we don't want to be the best kept secret. And when I hear that, I kind of cringe a little bit. So, we've had lots of discussions here on a state level and individual level. I'm based on within a county, so I'm very fortunate, to be in the community in a county. You probably have a statewide focus, but no matter what your focus and range is, like if you have a great program or a great idea how to connect people, and that's really what it boils down to. It's not about programs, it's about people that the programs are for. And, how do we do that with audio and video? And I love Brett's always the humanist angle. And I really love that. How do we match all that up and stick it in a blender and make it come out and be something significant? And I think the tools are there. It's just the tools are developing. They've certainly gotten better on the audio and video side. It doesn't matter if it's Teams and how you feel about Teams. Some feel about Teams the way others feel about email,
It's the
but at
purple
least it
people
has,
eater.
yeah, it has the video engagement piece. But yeah, there's all these tools. It's just leveraging those to amplify your voice. So, when you have good things to say and connecting people. And it seems like a lot of your background is kind of doing that, or trying to find ways to do that, as I did a little bit of reading in preparation for today. It's pretty cool stuff. And Brett, you called me out when I first came into Extension. We were not networked. That was in 96 when I came into Extension in Kentucky. And I didn't know what to think. I came into an office and they said, no, we don't have the internet here. And I was like, do what?
Like if
Very
you don't
interesting.
have the publication already printed in a file cabinet,
Yes.
you are not handing the publication to someone, or
Yes.
it's like, come back, I'll mail it to you. We'll
Yeah. I can
find
make
the
you some
file,
copies.
maybe. Yeah, but
Hey,
then,
and
even
that system worked at the time, but it was not at the speed, and the expectations of the speed were not what they have now. And I find now that people have access to information. They just sometimes need someone to help them make sense of it, to kind of frame it. So it's like the job has changed over time in Extension, and it's still evolving, but it's kind of different. And I think it relates to all this access to information and the way we learn, the way we gather information, the way we seek it. So, yeah.
Boy, I think you just said a mouthful there. I think it's really super interesting. I totally agree. We're not in an information deprived age anymore. And back in
Mm-mm.
1996, even a lot had changed by then, but still, information was a lot harder to come by. You just talked
Mm-hmm.
about that.
It was a gateway.
And
Yeah.
right, and now it's a fire hose or maybe even a
Mm-hmm. It absolutely.
tsunami. I don't know. We're
It's a
all just
typhoon or
awash in it.
something. Yeah, it
Right,
is.
it's too much,
It's
and just like
paralysis.
you said, yeah, what we really need is help making sense of it, interpreting it, applying it. I mean, AI is just, there's way more than you could ever want, but a lot of it doesn't really apply, or maybe it's a little
Mm-hmm.
sketchier, or is that really is that really
What is the
Yeah.
true? I don't
source
know.
for this?
Yeah, exactly. And we need to lean on one another, I think, a little bit more than we have. And I think, again, I think coming together, asking good questions, learning how we think about these things, how we make sense of things, is more important than ever. Yeah, information's nice, but again, I said before, if I come in and just start dumping information, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. If we can connect around a shared problem or a shared need, that's a whole different scenario, and that's where we're trying to be. And I think, as you said, Ray, these tools are opening a lot of doors for us, and it's a little bit ironic. We started calling this thing the Human My Minnesota Woods. This project that we're working on, we haven't even published it yet. It'll be out sometime soon. I don't know when. Um, but it'll be out when the time's right. But it is a little bit ironic about that we're calling it the human thing, and it's all going through YouTube and Spotify and whatever. But the human voice is big. So
Go YouTube. I've
Well,
got to install a in-sync aerator tonight. And so YouTube for the rescue. Yeah. Learning. Go ahead,
yeah.
Lex. Sorry.
I appreciate the human aspect. One thing that I've kind of learned, is that there's this perception, this perfection that comes out of especially with universities, right? And we're supposed to be the answer to all. So not only, but reversing that, and okay, not only do I want to hear what expertise you all have as boots on the ground, but also that idea of how can we best give you the information that you are looking for, I think is a big thing. We a lot of time have the information, and then it's our job as extension folks to put that in a version that is the most suitable for you and the most human. And also people are just desperately, I think, and I can say this for myself, looking for real people, right? Because it's so just it sucks to feel like you suck, right? So you see these people who are just perfect and, oh, they have all the answers and they're doing everything perfectly. and that's not always something that lifts up our farmers or our, growers or these people in this industry we work with. They want someone who does cough on camera a little bit, or flubs or gets caught up in their words, but we know they're smart, but there's a level of trust that comes with that. I think of, this is a real person. I know they're trying to help me and they're comfortable asking the questions, right? It also creates just sort of like this level of comfort and, to work with people. And that's how we make those relationships, in order to ask the questions and get real answers, not just what they think we want to hear, on how we help them. So it's good to know there's other people thinking along those lines of like, I don't have to be the perfect extension specialist with all of the answers. I know I don't have them, and I want to actually be a real person. So it's always nice to hear.
Human touch.
Yeah. It reminds me of, in music, you have this metronome where the beat is just perfectly laid out, dot, 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 and then you'll have these really famous tracks that have moved millions of people. They've changed, and they are famously like rushing the tempo or dragging the tempo. And it's that, like, when AI music came onto the scene, the perfection of being on the beat, it felt kind of weird because like songs will naturally change tempos across the course of a song. Even the band members know each other. They've been playing so long that they all do it together, which is kind of crazy. It reminds me of that, like, just perfection and the imperfection is like a new value that maybe we can put forth to say, look, we're not going to give you a thing where we pat you on the back and tell you everything you've said is amazing and perfect, like one of the AI chatbots does. And we're not going to give you this polished thing that maybe goes down easy, but we can give you some taste of reality and perspective and experience. That's well, Ray mentioned I tend to be bring in the humanity. And so I'm curious, this is something I've asked other people before. Eli, do you have in your memory a single, like, archetypal exact tree that comes to mind when we talk about the idea of a tree, like a tree from childhood? Some people have one that had a rope swing, or Ray maybe talk about the dogwood that his grandma had. Is there a particular tree from memory that from your either childhood or early life or any time in your life that comes to mind when you think of the tree?
I think that's just a fascinating question. And I think maybe surprisingly to someone working in forestry, or maybe not, the answer is kind of no. No, not an individual tree, but yes, forests, tons of them.
The ecology
is there one? Yeah, when I think of the archetypal, forest, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, for me, it's kind of northern Minnesota, peatland, or something like it. Dark conifer foliage. Maybe it's black spruce. Maybe it's balsam fir, or another species. Maybe there's some aspen mixed in with that light fluttering foliage. But yeah, it's the woods. It's the woods for me. It's that whole environment. It's the sound there. It's not an individual. It's a system. And I don't know if that reflects, if that's forest versus horticulture, or
no,
if
that's amazing.
Just me versus other people. But no, it's not an individual tree. It's that system.
That's a much better answer than my silver maple that was in my parents' backyard that had a branch that I could like barely hop up onto, and then as I got taller,
they're all good. No, it's no better than that answer. They're all good. And I've fallen out of trees. There have been lots of memorable trees in my life too. But no, when my mind goes that way to the archetypal thing, and it might be that Camp 8. Now that I think about it, that red pine stand on the Cloquet Forestry Center. There's such a rich human history there. There's a visual. There's something about home there, not in a possessive way, but in a in a sense of comfort. Yeah, exactly, Alexis. And yeah, and I feel lucky enough to have a few of those, but that one is pretty close to the top of the list.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I think, this conversation already feels way too short, and so we'll have to plan a round 2. Maybe we'll dive in on some other. I'd love to hear more about.
More trees, more forest.
But really appreciate you joining us. If you're out there and you enjoyed this episode, please do take the time to leave us a quick review, a thumbs up, 5 stars, wherever you're listening. It just depends on what kind of rating system, but also share it with somebody who maybe would like to hear about this and learn from this conversation. We post these every week, usually on Mondays. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can also contact us at hortculturepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at hortculturepodcast. Leave us a comment there. Follow us, tag us in your stories if you're doing something horticulturally relevant and fun. Until then, thank you very much, Eli, and we'll see you all down the road.